So now we're going to look at gene interaction. Our first example will be with mice. Now, in some cases, a single feature of an organism is controlled by more than one pair of alleles. These pairs of alleles interact to produce a particular phenotype, and there are two main types of this gene interaction. There's epistasis and there's polygenetic interaction. Now, in the first video, we already looked at polygenetic interaction. Features which show continuous variation in a population, such as height or weight in humans, are controlled by many pairs of alleles, and this feature will give us the bell-shaped distribution variation. The rest of this video is going to be about epistasis. Okay, and this occurs when one pair of alleles can suppress a second pair of alleles in the control of a single feature. And we're going to use mice as our example today. So hair color in mice is controlled by two alleles. There is one allele which is going to determine its color, and a second pair of alleles which is going to determine whether or not it has any color. So the fur color in mice can be the grey color, which we've seen in previous videos, or they can have like a black hair with a yellow band. Non-grey mice will have black coats. There are two different independently inherited genes involved in the expression of coat color. So a single gene with two alleles, big A and small a, dominant and recessive, determine the color of the coat. The dominant and heterozygous will result in the grey mouse, while the homozygous recessive will result in a black mouse. However, this is not the only gene which is going to have an influence on its colour. The second set of genes is required to actually express the pigment. When at least one dominant allele of the gene is present, so large M, homozygous dominant, capital M, small m, heterozygous, the agouti and the black phenotypes can be expressed. When the second gene is in the homozygous form, homozygous recessive, small m, no pigment is formed, and this results in albino mice. So here we have an example of a cross between our black mouse and our albino mouse. Now, a few things just to note here before we go on any further. For this mouse to be black, it must be homozygous recessive for this A gene. For it to express this black color, it has to have one of these dominant M alleles. Okay, so it could be capital M, like this case we have here, or it could also have been capital M, small m, and still be black. Likewise, for this white mouse to be albino, it doesn't actually matter what this A gene is, because it is homozygous recessive in the M gene. This is what makes it albino. So whenever these cross, they result in a first generation, which are all this agouti or all this grey mouse. It receives the dominant A gene from the white mouse, meaning it will be grey, and it receives the dominant M gene from the black mouse, meaning it will express that colour. Now in the second generation, we're crossing two grey mice, just like we've seen from the previous slide. So when we click through them, we get the following outcome. So far we've only seen grey mouse up until this point, and we get our first white mouse. This is because so far every mouse has received at least one dominant version of each gene. So the dominant A results in the grey colour, and the dominant M results in that colour being expressed. At this point, two small m's, the recessive condition is expressed, they've come together, and it results in no colour being expressed. And what would have been a black mouse based on the A gene is actually albino because it does not contain a capital M or a dominant M gene. Can we get another one of each? And at this stage we see our first black mouse. Now, for us to have a black mouse, we need to have the recessive condition in the A gene. Now, so far, we have not seen that. Okay, it will happen again. But not only does it need to have the recessive condition in the A gene, it also needs to have one of these dominant M genes. We move on through, we see another black mouse. This time is heterozygous for M, grey mouse. Another white, black, and white. So the expected ratio of 9 to 3 to 4 albino is our outcome here. So two genes have affected its colour, and this has resulted in 3 different phenotypes: grey, white, or black. Now, if we look at the 4 white mice, what they all have in common is that they have the two recessive M alleles. This results in them being albino. Now, of these 4 white mice, 3 of them should be grey in colour and 1 should be black in colour, but due to the fact that the M is in the recessive version in both cases, they do not express any colour, resulting in white. No pigment is produced in the presence of small m, or the recessive condition for this gene. So this is the last part of this topic, genes and inheritance. Today we just looked at epistasis. We can see that there is different genotypes present in mice, and this is the result of the genotypes of 2 different genes. There is the A gene, which determines whether or not it will be grey or black, and then there's the M gene, which determines whether or not a pigment will be synthesized. If the pigment cannot be synthesized, it will result in a white albino mouse. So that is the last part of genes and patterns of inheritance. We also talked briefly on polygenetic inheritance. If you want to learn more about that, go back to the first video of this series, and that will be us finished with this topic today.